Today on Capitol Hill, Representative Jim Jordan warned whistleblowers before their testimony before the House subcommittee on the weaponization on the federal government.
We've talked to over 24 whistleblowers. People have come to us. We've interviewed several of those, and today 3 of them. 3 of those brave whistleblowers and a lawyer who represents them will tell us their story. They will tell us what happened, what they saw, and then what happened to them because they were courageous enough to report it to Congress. And I just want to tell you guys, get ready. Get ready, because these guys are going to come after you. You know they are. Last hearing we had 2 journalists, Democrats, 2 Democrat journalists sat right where you guys did, and these guys tried to get them to divulge their sources. Someone needs to tell them how the First Amendment works. And while Mr. Taibbi, one of those award-winning journalists sitting right where you're sitting, was testifying, guess what else was happening? The IRS was knocking on his door. So get ready.
Audiences will remember that's Stacey Plaskett is a delegate from the U.S. Virgin Islands, I believe. She's the one who called Schellenberger and Taibbi so-called journalists, who then, because of the slight error Taibbi had made about which agency was which, even though I argued it was not the massive error that Mehdi Hasan claimed it, it made the Twitter files more than useless. She then called on Taibbi to recant or face, or reminding him that perjury can result in jail time. She's the one who sent that letter. So I think it's very rich of her to be getting all worked up about the rule of law. I'm sure you loved her whole during National Law Enforcement Week. How dare they?
Yeah, I think that if she wants to turn the Democrats into the pro-cop, anti-abolition party, that is completely their right. They might think there's political benefits to it. And I think there are a lot of younger voters and a lot of black voters and 20 million people who are in the street in the protests of 2020 who might very fairly choose to never vote for a Democrat again for the rest of their life. And that's something that the Democratic Party is going to have to deal with. But it's really interesting to see the confident choice that's being made to wrap yourself up in the kind of Blue Lives Matter flag in order to make some kind of point to an ostensibly conservative audience about how much they should not want to defund the FBI or investigate its overreaches. That used to be a core left principle, understanding that 85% of Contralpo's activities were targeting the left, that there has been a long history that continues to this day of leftists being caught up in the deep state overreach the same way as these right-leaning figures are now. There was a member of the African People's Socialist Party who was arrested on claims of Russiagate-ism just last year. It's really disappointing to see, frankly.
Right. It's disappointing to see so little Democratic buy-in or participation in these hearings in a useful way. Obviously, Democrats are going to reject some of the framing of the weaponization committee and how Donald Trump was uniquely and unfairly impacted, that kind of stuff. But there should be, I would hope, from ostensible progressives, some recognition of the nefarious role law enforcement has played in the history of left-wing activism. And then I would have liked to see some concern. We've seen occasionally we've seen concerns from Ro Khanna, Ilhan Omar has expressed some concern, but other than them, there's been very little buy-in from the Democrats that there's anything untoward about within the Twitter files and within the FBI's behavior more broadly. So this specifically, these whistleblowers, this Stephen Friend is I believe his name, who was testifying there. So he had his security clearance revoked.
Yeah, and I think it's worth just being clear about why his security clearance was revoked.
Go ahead if you want to explain that.
So in a letter that was given to him explaining why, it said the security concerns stem from your refusal to execute a court-ordered arrest warrant and authorized download of sensitive FBI information. So it seems as though there was a 1-6 participant that had an arrest warrant. He refused to execute that warrant and additionally downloaded documents from the FBI computer system to an unauthorized removable flash drive, which was also against protocol. So you can dispute whether or not this was targeted, but there do seem to have been legitimate violations of his work conduct, a failure to perform the task of arresting someone.
But I hope that every FBI agent, every police officer, every person in law enforcement who is asked to carry out an arrest, an order, or something, if they believe it is unconstitutional or illegal or violates something, I hope they absolutely refuse to do it every single time.
I absolutely agree. But the point of civil disobedience is to accept the consequences of your civil disobedience. It's not to, do a lunch counter-strike and then complain when you're thrown to jail. Those civil rights protesters sat in jail,
right.
And that was part of.
They're allowed to complain about being thrown in jail.
So the point here is that he could have lawfully and not in a retaliatory way been removed, had his security clearance removed in a way that isn't retaliatory. It's just about his performance, but he can be completely legitimate in choosing not to arrest whoever was supposed to be arrested. FBI official whistleblower Stephen Friend, who we're talking about now, testified on what he says happened after he sounded the alarm on the FBI's treatment of those arrested at the January 6th Capitol attacks.
Nonetheless, the FBI cynically elected to close ranks and attack the messenger. The FBI is incentivized to work against the American people and in dire need of drastic reform, particularly in these areas. The integrated program management system incentivizes the use of inappropriate investigatory processes and tools to achieve arbitrary statistical accomplishments. Mission creep within the National Security Branch has refocused counterterrorism from legitimate foreign actors to political opponents within our borders. The FBI weaponizes process crimes and reinterprets laws to initiate pretextual prosecutions and persecute its political enemies. Bureau intelligence analysis capability increasingly dictates operations, turning the FBI into an intelligence agency with a law enforcement capability. FBI collusion with big tech to gather intelligence on Americans, censor political speech, and target citizens for malicious prosecution. A dysfunctional promotion process fosters a revolving door of inexperienced, ambitious FBI supervisors ascending the management ladder within the agency. FBI informant protocols that are broken and abusive. The FBI skirts the Whistleblower Protection Act and exploits the security clearance revocation process to expel employees who make legally protected disclosures.
Right, so that's his perspective that some of these arrests being made with respect to January 6th were improper. I saw elsewhere he made a statement that there was, and it's obviously true, that there was a mix of lawful protesting going on and then also some very unlawful trespassing, smashing of things, feuding with police officers. And look, I think everyone who broke those laws, who smashed windows, who shoved police, who didn't respond to orders to stop trespassing, I think it is absolutely appropriate to bring those people to justice with the appropriate justice, not solitary confinement for however long. Even I forget his name, the horns guy got a pretty lengthy sentence.
Yeah.
But yes, they should be prosecuted and they should serve something because you can protest, you can't trespass, you can't smash stuff, you can't set things on fire. So I think that's all appropriate while still, while not overreaching. And we talked about this. I think you were actually away, and it was Jessica and I who talked about some of these efforts to prosecute, the successful thus far efforts to prosecute like Proud Boys leadership on like organizing a seditious coup sort of charges, which to me gets well beyond, it is concerning, is in fact a kind of weaponizing the whole concept. Like, look, this thing was not organized. To my mind, this was a mostly spontaneous act of law breaking, a crowd that got out of control. And I think, and in this case, in the Proud Boys case, they're going after people who weren't even there, trying to say that they were organizing it to the extent they were, they were talking, and they were about, we got to take action, we got to defend Trump, that kind of stuff on social media. And to say that speech rises to the level of conspiracy to organize something like this, I think is very troubling. So I absolutely agree that in several cases, law enforcement is going well beyond and is actually just criminalizing free expression. But there is still a legitimate interest in bringing the rule breakers to justice with sentences that reflect what they actually did.
Yeah, I think that's right. Over-incarceration, mass incarceration, and weaponizing the law enforcement community to punish people whose politics don't agree with yours isn't just all of a sudden not a problem when the people involved are folks that you don't agree with ideologically.
Right.
And that should be obvious and clear as day. Now, to the extent that some might try to characterize some of the things that are said at this hearing, and more broadly, as exculpatory for the people who did violate the law and behave inappropriately, I obviously don't agree with that. But it is very concerning the extent to which Democrats are leaning into this. Cops are good. Tough on crime is good. Let's punish everybody to
jail
the max.
Everybody who was at January 6th. What about, just as you said, over-incarceration?
It's a real
Democrats said
problem.
that was a real problem.
Yeah.
But like, and again, this isn't all Democrats, but like Stacey Plaskett Democrats are leaning into the kind of, lock them all up.
Yeah, so for example, right now, there have been Cop City protesters. It was recently reported on. The autopsy report recently exonerated the young protester who was shot to death in the Cop City protesters. They claimed that he had fired on the cops. The autopsy report revealed that is not what happened. And moreover, activists protesting Cop City have been arrested by the score for simply distributing mailers in people's mailboxes. So I can't imagine anything more First Amendment-y than handing out a flyer with your political opinion on it. And people are currently in jail with draconianly high bail amounts for simply engaging in that kind of speech activity. So to have that happening in one part of the world, which I would also argue many elected Democrats are being very silent about, but having that happen in one part of the country and ostensibly opposing it, and then not having a principally consistent stance when it's happening in the Capitol undermines the credibility of reform work all across the country. It's a very bad move, and it's a very short-term political gamble that Democrats are making that might have long-term negative effects for the party.
Well said. More Rising right after this.